So what are we covering today? The Quaresma Trivela tutorial and 3 reasons why the Trivela style of shooting is so effective. So for that first reason why the Trivela style of shooting is so effective is because that when you go to shoot a pass shot, a driven shot, you're generally planting next to that ball. You're about to follow through. You're approaching that ball in a diagonal or even from behind. And as a defender, they're trained. They see tons and tons of players every single game shooting with that form. So they know when they see that and they're going to jump and they're going to try to cut it off. And oftentimes they'll get a touch on it, which deflects the ball and makes it so it's not as powerful and not as accurate. Versus when you go to use that Trivela, you're generally dribbling with your toe down and in. And when you shoot with the Trivela, your toe also down and in. So that when you go to take that next touch, instead of actually dribbling it, you're just extending that leg back a little bit more so you can drive through a little bit more and striking that ball instead of actually taking that next dribble. So a lot of defenders won't be expecting the shot, and especially the goalkeeper won't have as much time to react, because when you go to strike that ball with a driven shot, it looks very similar. The goalie, he's going to get set. He's going to be able to dive and react to it. Versus when you're dribbling and then strike a shot and no one expected it, it's much harder to stop. So now, soccer squad, I actually had a recent game where I went up against a defender and was using a couple of shot fakes. And let me tell you, these shot fakes were spectacular. So I went to push the ball away from the shot fake, and sure enough, this defender was able to, one, be in front of my shot fake and lunge out far enough to be able to stop both of my shots, which I was very impressed by. I hadn't had a person do that in years, especially now that I understand the form for actually doing it. So something to keep in mind is that when I was approaching the ball, I was approaching it from a diagonal. I was going to rip a shot, a driven shot, and the defender was able to recognize that pattern, that form of my body, that approach, and to be able to stop it. And then when I pushed it again, he was able to lunge out again and actually stop the ball. Versus having a outside of the foot shot, that Trivela type of shot, that would have been able to make it so that I've been able to get that shot off, versus me having my shot blocked twice by the same person in only a matter of 5-10 minutes. So that second reason why the Trivela is so effective is because you're striking it with the bone of your foot, but because that leg is swinging across your body, you're going to be able to get some bend on that ball. And with bend allows you to get it around a wall, get it around a defender, get it around a goalkeeper, that a driven shot doesn't have. So think about it. If you're approaching along the sideline and can quickly whip in a ball using the outside of your foot, defender's not going to be looking to stop that. Super effective. Also, being able to strike it from even slightly outside the 18 or even a little bit inside the 18, where it looks like you're going to take another dribble and you actually go to shoot with a bent shot, being able to bend it to that far post away from the goalkeeper. Actually, in fact, you'd probably be wanting to bend it to the near post if you're using that right foot and you're on this side of the field versus the left side of the field on this side. But it's so important that having that additional curve, as well as the goalkeeper and defender not knowing when you're shooting it, makes it such a big difference that a Trivela allows that a driven shot, a pass shot, even a toe poke doesn't have. So that third thing that's super effective with the Trivela, and this is something that I still struggle with, guys, I'm going to be honest. When I go to strike a ball out of the air, I'm generally coming through out of habit and striking it as a driven shot. But the problem is with a driven shot, notice how my foot, how it gets super narrow, which makes it a lot easier for me to make a mistake by hitting too high or too low on the ball. Versus as that ball is coming across and I try to strike that with the Trivela, so I'm having my toe down and in, I'm striking through the ball, it makes less room for error because that ball, notice I can hit a little too high, a little too low, and I'm still going to be striking through, driving through, still having an accurate shot. So as that ball is getting crossed out of the air, if you've got to go up to reach for it because you got a defender super close and you just won't have time to let it drop, then yes, strike it out of the air. Striking it, getting a shot is better than no shot. But if you got time to let that ball come a few more feet, then striking it with that Trivela, toe down and in, following through, keeping your shoulders over that ball is going to produce more goals. And that's something that I'm still working on as well. So let's work together on that. So as a little side note, when it comes to shooting and finishing, it's always about trying to increase your probability of scoring. With every single shot, depending on the form that you use, depending on how close to the net you are, depending on the field condition, depending on the weather, the wind, depending on if the field's wet, depending on all these little things, factors into how likely that shot's actually to go in. So when it comes to using the Trivela, you're really trying to use that in situations that increase your probability of that ball going in. So as that ball's coming across in the air, you're striking it with your body over that ball. That's going to increase the probability it goes in versus striking it from the side if you have time. Also, striking it when you got a defender super close to you is going to make it so that there's a much higher chance that it gets by the defender. The ball's got to get by the defender in order to go in, so if it doesn't, then your shot's not scoring. So it's all about probabilities. It's about making the chance that that shot goes in a little bit higher. So for that first thing to avoid is if you're pretty close to the net, avoid leaning back because that ball's likely going to go up and over the net. But now keep in mind, because you have such a small follow through, your leg's not going super far back behind you, if you're outside that 18, you got to be able to strike that, lean back a little bit so that ball can get some arch and it can go towards the far post. So very important that we avoid leaning back closer to the net, but as we get further away, because there's not much follow through, there's not much build up with that leg, we've got to get some power on it, and leaning back on that shot will help. So that second thing to avoid, and this is even more important, is we want to avoid learning this skill just to learn it because it looks cool. It's so important that you can shoot a driven shot, that you can shoot a pass shot, that you can pass and receive and take that attacking touch with correct form, that you can do a self pass, that you can do a jab. Learning the Trivela isn't the most important thing in the world. So if you haven't learned those other things, make sure to follow my channel so that you can actually learn those other more important things. But now, when it comes to the Trivela, it's cool to do, but there's very few situations in a game that you're actually going to use it, versus passing is something you're going to do every single game, multiple times a game. So remember, increase the probabilities of success. Focus more on the things you're actually going to use and not so much on the things that you won't. The outside of the foot shot allows you to diversify the way you can shoot the ball on target to continually keep the defenders and goalie guessing. Per the image, use the portion of your foot where the leather of the outside of your shoe meets the laces. When a defender knows you can use any part of your foot or can use either one of your feet, they tend to give you way more space. When they give you more space, it makes it even easier for you to have time to shoot, pass, dribble, or do whatever you need to on the field. The defender will give you a certain amount of space and respect because they do not want to be beat. So they are hoping that you will pass the ball off to someone else and they will have considered their job done because they did not allow such a good soccer player to continue with the ball. Also, because the outside of the foot shot or pass is going to be a bit curved, this enables you to pass or shoot around the goalkeeper by bending it in, or to find a passing lane that would not have been there otherwise if you were not able to curve the ball when you passed it. Notice what I'm doing here. I am beginning with the ball stopped to practice my steps and form to become more comfortable in shooting with the outside of my foot. I'm approaching the ball from an angle from behind the right side of the ball. I'm striking the ball after having mostly only bent my leg at the knee. Because I'm not really bending at the hip, this shot is very quick from start to finish. Lastly, notice how I'm following through the ball, landing past the ball, and finishing with my hips pointed where I want the ball to go. So soccer squad, make sure to stick around to the end of this video for that pro tip that you've been waiting for. If you want to learn more about how to have the hardest and most accurate shot in your league, then grab the second book in the Understand Soccer series, Soccer Shooting and Finishing, today on Amazon.com using the link in the description below. Keep in mind that you should only develop the outside of the foot shot once you become very comfortable with the driven shot and an inside of the foot shot. Please note that shooting with the outside of your foot involves you turning your toes down and in to hit the ball with the laces of your cleats, which is directly on top of the bone of your foot. Performed this way, it allows you to use the hardest part of your foot to have more power on your shot.